I'd like to call to order the Development Review Board for Monday, January 25th, 2016. First item on the agenda, are there any communications from the public that are not on the agenda tonight? Hearing none. First, I'd like to have each member introduce themselves as well as staff, starting with Scott.
Scott Foster.
Heather Seeley, alternate.
Ruth Whitney.
Rick Emelo.
Kevin Newton, Chair.
Jen Murray, staff.
David Hamilton.
Don Keeler.
Thank you. First item is the approval of the minutes of 12/14/2015.
We turn the volume up. Right here.
I'll have to speak because these mics are only for the TV. I will try.
There's also chairs in the front row if anyone has trouble hearing. You might want to move up.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there discussions? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I was absent, Jeff.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Rick
Rick.
did. Second by
Dave
David.
seconded.
Don abstaining.
Okay. Next, I'm going to administer an oath for tonight. Do you affirm that the evidence and information you are giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief? Okay. The first business item is an application by the Vermont Agency of Transportation for conditional use in PUD review of a proposal for a runway and taxiway improvement project at Middlebury State Airport. The parcel is located at 467 Airport Road in the AIR zoning district. Okay, the applicants, if you would want to,
You don't want to.
Kevin?
yes.
You don't want to read the meeting participation guidelines?
Oh, yeah, yes, go ahead.
Kevin,
Yes.
I'd like to recuse myself. I'm a state employee, and it probably would be appropriate for me to be voting on something that's a state application. I'll remove myself from the table.
Okay, thank you, Doc.
I will acknowledge that I receive a state retirement. If anybody has a problem with that, I would be happy to recuse myself.
Does the board have any problems with that? Okay. Before we get started, Jen is going to read a few items of procedure.
Stand up so I can project a little better. So I thought it might be helpful for me to just go over the meeting guidelines, because maybe not everybody here comes to DRB meetings all the time. So in general, this meeting has been convened tonight for the purpose of holding 4 separate public hearings for the DRB to receive evidence and testimony relevant to their review of 4 applications on the agenda. So the first item on the agenda is the airport project. The second item is an application by Tony Neary for a miniature golf facility on Route 7. The third application, also Mr. Tony Neary, for a conditional use review to consider 2 setback waivers for a building in the industrial district. And then the fourth item on the agenda is an application by Mr. Ron Fenn for subdivision review of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. So that's your agenda tonight. So these hearings have a different purpose from public information meetings in that their primary purpose is not to inform and educate the public of various aspects of the proposed project. Attendees are welcome to use this proceeding to voice their support or opposition to a project, and the DRB is also interested in any concerns you might have about various aspects of the project. So any questions you have should be to clarify your understanding of the project so that you can give them some input about your opinion on the project. That said, participants must qualify as an interested person in order to appeal a DRB decision, which at minimum requires you to participate in the hearing either by speaking or by submitting comments in writing prior to the close of the hearing. That's a state law about interested persons. So if you intend to participate in the hearing tonight, whether or not you participate in the hearing verbally or orally, I would ask you to put your name and mailing address on the interested persons list, which is on the clipboard on the table by the door. Please write legibly. It's your responsibility to record your name and address on that interested persons list, or else I can't contact you further about the results of this hearing. Please raise your hand to be recognized to speak. To speak, the board chair will make every effort to recognize the public in the order that the hands are raised. And then once you're recognized by the chair, if you could, please identify yourself for the record so we can get it on our recording device and we know who's speaking for the minutes. We're suggesting a time limit tonight of 2 minutes. Please respect this and keep your comments brief and succinct. Time limits are used so that they can aid in making sure everyone's heard and that there's sufficient time available for the board to conduct its business, and we have a big agenda tonight. Please address your comments to the chair, that's Kevin. Please don't address other audience members or staff or presenters, and please don't interrupt others when they're speaking. So you'll give your questions to Kevin, he'll collect all your questions, and then he'll ask the applicants the questions, and that keeps things orderly. It's just a standard DRB procedure. Please make every effort not to repeat the points made by others. If you want to voice agreement, please voice agreement, but don't repeat points or comments previously made. The chair will make reasonable efforts to allow everyone who's interested in participating to speak once on an agenda item, and priority will be given to those who have not spoken over those who already have. And no further comments or testimony can be accepted after the close of the hearing. So if you have anything to say, please say it now before they close the hearing. You'll hear them make a motion to close the hearing. And in order for board members and other members of the audience to hear speakers' remarks, side conversations should be kept to a minimum. And if you want to continue your discussion, we would encourage that you do so out in the hallway so that other people can hear, because it's hard to hear in here tonight. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Okay. So if you would like to introduce yourself and inform us what the project is.
My name is John Benson. I'm with Du Bois and King, consultant for the Vermont Agency of Transportation on the Middlebury Airport project. And with me here is Guy Urell. Guy is the head of the Agency of Transportation, the aviation section. So what I'd like to do is, just as you asked, give you a quick overview of what the project entails, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So we have a couple exhibits over here. If you look at this drawing here, this represents what's out there at the airport today. So what you have is a 2,500 foot by 50 foot wide runway and a parallel taxiway. What I want to just point out, if you look at this taxiway, you can see like right here it makes a jog, there it makes a jog. It's not straight, it's not parallel to the runway, which doesn't meet current FAA standards. And the other thing, if you've been out there and you look at the parallel taxiway, it's in very poor condition. The pavement is all alligator cracked and starting to fall apart. So the project consists of the runway and taxiway. What I want to point out right here, this is what's on file in the town records. This is the approved planned unit development for the airport that was submitted and on file from 1986. And if we look at this, here is the 2,500 foot runway right here. Here's your parallel taxiway. I know it's a little hard to see. There is a copy of this in your application package. But what you'll see is that the PUD that was approved by the town back in '86 included the extension of the runway to 3,700 feet and widening of the runway to 75 feet. And it also included the extension of a parallel taxiway. Okay, so just as reference, that's what the PUD is that's on file with the town. So now I just want to switch out exhibits here so we can talk about what our proposal is. So the proposed improvements include widening of the existing section of the runway, the 2,500-foot section. The south end of the runway remains in the same location as it is today, but we're widening the runway to 60 feet as opposed to the 75 feet that are in the approved PUD. And we're extending the runway by 700 feet, which will make the total length of the runway 3,200 feet, okay? Those meet current FAA standards for the Titan class aircraft that currently operate at this airport. The runway as it exists out there today is substandard from the FAA's perspective for the Titan class aircraft that operate here at the airport. So this is really a safety-oriented project to basically bring the runway into compliance with current day standards for what's called a Class B1 aircraft. And as you can see, here's the parallel taxiway. We've straightened that out, so now it's straight and parallel, meets the isolation or separation distance between runway and taxiway for safe operation of aircraft, so that aircraft can be operating on the taxiway at the same time there might be an aircraft taking off or landing on the runway. So that's really the project, is widening and extension of the runway to 3,200 feet, 60 feet wide. We're actually narrowing the width of the taxiway. In some places out here, it's 30, 35 feet wide. The parallel new taxiway will be 25 feet wide for the entire length. The other point, just a couple things to point out, is right here we've identified in this location as a staging area for the contractor, which is in your plan set. So that's where we're saying to the contractor, that's where you come in, set up your trailer, store your equipment and so forth, so it's out of the way of any of the actual operations. I will note that while the runway is actually being reconstructed, the airport will actually be shut down. We will not be able to have aircraft operating on the runway while the runway is under construction. So the idea right now is that the runway would be the first piece of construction, that getting done here this coming late summer, fall. And then come spring of the following year would be the work on the parallel taxiway. Runway would be reopened at the end of this construction season and remain open all next year during the construction of the parallel taxiway. That's not part of this. So I think that's a quick overview of what the project entails, and as I said, would be happy to address any questions that you might have.
Okay, so the reason for this is a safety issue, and you're not projecting an increase in the airport's level of business?
I mean, we're not. I mean,
Okay.
the purpose of this is not to necessarily increase the business at the airport.
Okay.
That's not to say it's a publicly owned, publicly operated airport. So the state, nor any of us by FAA rules or federal rules, can control or eliminate somebody who wants to come in and land or operate out of this airfield.
You can move up front. We don't have anything to,
And again, it's hard to hear even in the front row.
Okay.
Could you elaborate on elements of the project that are off-site? Are there tree corridor? Or
Yes.
are you going to get there?
Well, my understanding, again, this is your, your forum, so we'll do whatever you folk would like us to do, but as we understand the town zoning regulations, tree clearing is not something that requires approval from the board. But I'll be happy to talk about that, just so you understand what's going on and why we're doing what we're doing. Which comes to this exhibit, which we provided to you in your package, just so that you can be informed of what's going on. When you look at a runway, obviously planes are coming in on an approach angle and departing on an approach angle. And what you have to the south end of the current airfield, and as I said, we're not changing the location of the end of the runway on the south end. It's staying right where it is. But if you look at the projection on the approach, what you can see are there are a number of trees on both on airport, which is right here, and off airport, which are those other shaded areas where the trees penetrate into what we call a Part 77 surface, or the approach surface coming into the end of the runway. And so one of the other parts of this project is the Agency of Transportation has been working with each of these landowners to acquire what's called a navigation easement, which allows them to go in and remove those trees that project above or are within 10 feet of the approach surface, and then to be able to keep those areas free of what are called obstructions from an aviation standpoint into the future. So that's what this plan that we provided to you illustrates.
Thank you.
Yes, Ellen?
You mentioned in your discussion that the southern end of the runway was not changing.
That's correct.
So on this drawing,
The
it says-
tree clearing one, it shows a slight change in it.
Okay.
There was at one point in time a discussion about moving the location of the southern end slightly to the north. That's not the plan
okay,
at this point.
okay, thank you.
Other questions at this time?
Can I ask?
Sure.
Could you talk a little bit about, and I apologize, there was a lot of information here. And the basin on the northwest side for the stormwater collection, I didn't see a specific detail for that, and I could have missed it. Could you talk about, do you
What I
have-
did, and sure. That question actually came from the town too, and I did copy Jen on the information that we submitted back to the town. No, it obviously didn't get disseminated to everybody. I
think we did get some of that information. I was just curious about a detail for what that looks like.
Yeah, and there was a detail
Oh,
in
I don't think we got it.
that
I forwarded that email
Plan.
to the DRB.
So let me just explain how all that works and what's going on stormwater-wise today and what's going on stormwater as a result of the project. So right now, right about in here is the natural divide in the land, okay? So from about here, drainage goes this way, and then from here goes this way, naturally on the airfield. It's all within the Beaver Brook drainage basin, whether it goes to the north or it goes to the south. That is the ultimate receiving water. Right now, the runway and the taxiway are crowned. So half the runway and half the taxiway drain into the center, and the other, obviously this edge drains out into this open field area, and the other part of the taxiway drains over here. There is a swale built right here that was approved by the DRB as a part of some future hangar construction at that end. So that swale does exist there. The other thing there's a dry well about here, there's another one up here, and there's several tied with some of these taxiways, which are infiltration structures, basically a dry well that captures the water and then infiltrates it. We're eliminating both of those from what I'll call the infield area in order to comply with all of the current state standards for, and I'm sure you folk have gone through some of this before. There's 5 criteria that we need to look at underneath the state stormwater program. There's water quality, there's recharge, there's channel protection, there's overbank and extreme flood. So we need to look at all 5 of those criteria as we look at how we design the stormwater system. So in the proposed condition, we're still going to have the runway crown, the taxiway crown, with the exception of this section right here of the taxiway, which right now is designed to all shed into the infield area, okay? And I'll talk about an option to that in just a minute. So what happens is, again, from about here, this drains this way, this drains this way. So there's a swale down through the center that takes the collected runoff, brings it down to here. There will be a culvert underneath this piece of the taxiway and a discharge point right here, which is consistent with the current discharge location from the swale that exists there. On this end, it comes through that swale. There's a culvert underneath the taxiway here, and right in this area here is the infiltration basin that you're referring to. So the way the system is designed is this is what we call a hydraulic class A soil, so it's a sand to a sandy silt material. So there's really not much runoff generated from the ground itself. Most of your stormwater infiltrates. In fact, if you talk to folk out there at the airport, they'll tell you after a heavy rain, within a matter of minutes, the water's all gone. It just basically infiltrates because of the high permeability of the existing soil. So coming in this direction, for the most part, the water quality volume, which is the primary piece we need to be concerned about, is all infiltrated. We're going to put just a slight check dam right here in the end of this swale to retain a little bit of that water to be sure that that all infiltrates. And then right now what would happen if we capacity exceeded the capacity of this dry well, water would sheet over the taxiway or the runway. That's something we want to avoid. Want to be able to maintain the runway usable in all conditions. And the reason for that, I'll just point out, and Guy can certainly talk to this better than I, but during Irene, in certain locations in the state airports were key to being able to provide relief to people because they were some of the only pieces of infrastructure that could be used to actually bring needed food and other services into isolated communities. So the idea is to make sure that the airport remains functional all the way through a major storm event. And so that's why we put the culvert in here as opposed to allowing the water to build up and sheet over top of the taxiway as it would today. And on the other end, okay, we come out here because we have a bunch of new pavement. Our standards are a little higher because we need to deal with not only in here the water quality volume, we need to deal with the 10-year storm and the channel protection event. So what we've done is we've designed a infiltration basin here, and there's no actual brook at this end. There is at the other end. So what we don't want to do is to increase the amount of runoff that could potentially go over onto the adjacent property. So it's capturing it there and it's infiltrating it. And what's the infiltration basin? There's nothing really fancy about it. All it is a depression in the existing ground, about 18 inches deep, and I believe it's roughly 50 by 50. And it simply allows the water coming off of that end to be captured in that basin and infiltrate into the ground. And in that design, by current standards, we actually had to go out and do test pits and permeability tests to size that properly to be sure that would happen. And in fact, there's a factor of safety of 2 in the design by following standards. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I do want to just come back to one item I told you that I would as it related to this piece of taxiway. As I said, right now, it's set up where it would all drain. This wouldn't be crowned, but would all drain into the infield, come out this culvert right here and into the infiltration basin. The other item that we are looking at is a slight modification where we build a swale right down here to the infiltration basin so that we could maintain a crown on that piece of taxiway as opposed to sheeting it all in, which is a better design. But it essentially does the exact same thing. It's just the method of conveyance of how the water gets to that retention basin.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Could you tell us if you're going to have an operational stormwater permit for this, and if so, who manages it and what it is?
Yeah.
I know what it is, I just want you to say it for everybody.
Yes. I mean, actually, there's 2 things on this. One is, yes, we'll have an operational stormwater permit. That application actually has been submitted to A&R and is under review currently. The Agency of Transportation, and Guy can certainly pick in here, has a staff that does do the maintenance, does do the inspections, and maintains their the operational division that deals with maintaining state permits for all of their facilities, and that's part of their charge. The other thing is as an airfield, and it's really not the runway or the taxiway, but it's this area in here, falls underneath the MS4 or a program, and so there's also a multi-sector general permit in place for the airport and a SWIP, Stormwater Prevention Plan, which looks at what they call industrial activities, and any industrial activity in the United States underneath that program has to get a multi-sector general permit or individual permit, and needs to maintain a stormwater prevention plan for their facility. So that is in place. That does exist for the airport. The improvements that we're making here have no impact on that because the runway, taxiway are not considered the industrial sort of activity that's associated with the hangars and the workings of aircraft on the airfield.
Other questions at this time? In your narrative, I'm just going to go through a couple of things, just so that they're on the record. In regards to traffic, you don't predict any increase in motor traffic vehicle
Other than-
as a result of this project?
Correct, other than that associated with construction.
Yep. Okay.
That entire submission is part of the record.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, I'll open it up to the public. If you would probably stand up so that we can try to hear you, and state your name and your question or concern.
Kevin. Is
I think
that
they
my-
need to
is
use that microphone.
Oh,
Just questions for the folks that are, or is this my own?
yep, can I? Could everyone use the microphone? It will be helpful too when we get a record of the minutes.
Also, people who came in late should be sworn in and also need to
Yep,
sign
my name is
out
Ross
lists.
Conrad. I live on Burnham Drive, right near the airport, within half a mile. Sorry, this is, I need to speak up, sorry. So it was stated that this is being, the lengthening of the runway and the widening is being done to meet FAA safety standards. So for clarification, correct me if I've got this right, there's nothing unsafe about the runway now except for the trees and the condition of the pavement. The reason it's being widened and lengthened is because the state is looking to the federal government for most of the funding. And when we rely on the funding from the federal government, we have to build it to their standards, which is currently what they're proposing. It's not that it's an unsafe airport. In fact, if you look at, accident reports going back decades, very few accidents and none that can be directly associated, that are reported directly associated to extension, the length of the runway or the width. Is that correct?
So questions can't be addressed, like I said at the top, you got to address your questions to Kevin. It has to be a question, that sounded like a statement, I'm not, did you get a question on that?
It was a clarifying question.
Whether the safety, whether it really had to be improved for safety reasons?
Right, right. If this is being done as a requirement of accepting money as opposed to a requirement that it's really unsafe and needs to be fixed. Like if we didn't get the money from the government, we would still have to do that because it's not safe, for example.
Okay,
I can answer that question.
okay.
Yeah, Guy Ruel, State Aeronautics Administrator. First of all, I wore my seatbelt all the time. I've never been in a car accident, so it's fortunate for me. I'm very happy to have my seatbelt. The FAA feels, we've confirmed that with the consultants, that the current length of the runway with the classification of aircraft that use the airport, there's a lower percentage of the aircraft that can use that airport based on the current classification of the airfield. By putting the airport into the current standards, which by the way the standards have been written by the FAA because of accidents across the United States, we will enable the use of that airport by the same classification of aircraft, but the total 100% of those aircraft that are in that fleet mix. I hope that answered your question.
So I'm not opposed to clearing the trees and fixing the pavement. I think the runway is a very valuable facility and asset to the community. I do have concerns about the scope of the project. In particular, the effect on the aquifer that is below the airport with the chemicals, potential chemicals that can leach through the ground. This is because a geological survey that was done in the 1980s found that the whole second northern half of the airport has no clay layer between the surface and the aquifer to protect the aquifer. So anything that gets placed on that ground, including herbicides that are sprayed along the perimeter of the fence, anything from planes, that is all going to, if it leaches into the ground, it's going to end up eventually in our drinking water, because most of our town residents get their water from this aquifer. So I looked at the best management practices. They do seem to address de-icing, but I didn't hear anything about herbicides or any other potential chemicals, such as from some of the facility industrial uses. So I think that needs to be looked at.
Okay, so your question is the aquifer protection?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it really, how are they going to prevent chemical contamination of the aquifer in case of either a major spill or even just general maintenance?
Will you be getting a water resources permit?
Yeah. Well, we'll be getting our stormwater permit. So
Okay.
again, we come back to some of the issues of what we're doing versus what's there, okay? Fuel farm that's there, not touching it, that's there, that's all approved. It has a containment area on it. and nothing that we're doing with this project affects or changes any aspect of that. One of the very first things we did as we started the actual design is we sat down with the Water Quality Division of A&R, and we talked about the plan, we talked about our approach and how we were going to deal with stormwater and so forth, and the individual who's in charge of this district indicated that she didn't feel that there was any issue here, but that she would raise the question over to the Drinking Water Division, make them aware of what we were proposing to do, and ask whether they had any concerns with respect to the proposed project. And I did send Jen a copy.
That email from
of-
Helen Carr is in the record and has been
Right,
forwarded to the
and-
DRB members.
And they indicated no concern. So, so we proceeded accordingly.
Thank you. Other questions? Yeah, I have it out there.
Hi, my name is Dick Turk. I've got actually 3 questions. First of all, I want to follow up on that, on the water quality, and just ask a question through Kevin. It's my understanding that there is no de-icing done at this airport. Is that correct? Can I get an answer on that?
Is there de-icing done at the airport?
Not currently.
Are there plans to?
That, there may be, but we don't have any current requests or need at this point.
Okay.
Okay, then I'd like to comment on that.
Okay.
Because the report,
Can't
or
have it back
the report from Rodney Pinnegree, Chief of Water Resources, Section of Drinking Water, Groundwater Protection, so blah, 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 says, he said that because there's no de-icing and the chemicals aren't being used for de-icing, that that he has, that there's no significant risk. But he specifically says because there's no de-icing. That's right in that report.
We also
as I
have
read
that
it.
email, that's also part of
Yeah.
the record. Do you have a second
So,
question?
yes, I do. And,
Okay.
well, I have also a recommendation that I think that it should be recommended, or should be part of the permit, that no de-icing could be allowed unless they came back with a procedure and so forth for, that's a recommendation.
Mr. Chair, could I comment on that?
Sure.
The merits of this project have been brought forward at the DRB. We're not proposing de-icing. I would strongly encourage that if a project to build a de-icing system or to use de-ice on the airfield were to come up, we would certainly come forward with that and go through the proper permits. But currently, we're not asking for that.
Thank you.
Okay, my second point is on the, I have copies of the annual reports for the water quality testing. It was my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong on this, and actually Guy will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there were test wells out there that were available to test the water quality. The report that has been submitted for the past 5 years, and they have done it every year, and I read the report and everything was fine, was strictly a visual report, but there's no reports on the actual, if there's any test wells and so forth, there's nothing on that. So that's, my question is, are there test wells, and should there be, and are there any reports from that so that we can continually check the water quality and any infiltration that is happening? And then I have one other one after this.
I can answer that. We do stormwater inspections every quarter. We also have the Agency of Natural Resources inspects the airfield with our Agency of Transportation resource folks at least annually. The reports we do quarterly are submitted to A&R, and if we're following their best practices that they've given to us, and we have not seen any issues or found anything in any of the test pits or stormwater runoff areas.
So you do have test wells.
We do have areas where we test this, we observe the stormwater, and we're following the best management practices.
There's no
The actual-
groundwater wells
Okay,
on
right.
the site that require actual physical or chemical analysis or testing.
To catch up something, I can tell you that there were, A&R recommended after a stormwater report that was done, that we have, I believe we did that in 2011 or 12, they had recommended that they're just filled with crushed stone and sealed off because they weren't needed. So some of those were filled with stone.
Okay, then, in follow-up to that, I would recommend that there be, I mean, this is on top of our aquifer. And by the testimony, and rightly so, water doesn't sit on that ground. It goes right straight down because of the sandy soils, and so it goes right down and into our aquifer, and that's for Middlebury and East Middlebury's water supply. And we have it, as everybody knows, we have we're very fortunate to have that water supply. So we want to make sure we protect it. And I'm sure that can be done, but I think that it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed as part of a requirement. And the last thing I just want to report on, or just a comment on, is that there was a report that said that they don't anticipate any additional traffic from this proposal. In information that we've received from the VTrans, the current operation is 4,600, roughly 4,600, I don't know the exact numbers, I've got it, but it's roughly 4,600 operations, I guess you call it, right? The proposed is over 11,000 operations, and if you go to the question and answers that came back from VTrans to us, to a group of us and to the town, they refer to 35,000 operations. Now, that's a far cry from no change. So I think there's other things that are involved in this other than just there's no additional traffic. There may not be, but there sure is. If you go from 4,600 to 35,000, there's probably going to be some traffic somewhere.
I can respond to that. So every master plan that the FAA asks us to, or any airport to have, there's a forecasting section. Forecasting section is usually derived of nationally acquired trends across every airport across the United States. So there are forecasted data that shows above and beyond and up to 35,000 operations. I do believe if you look at the PUD for 1986, we were at that point in 1986 forecasting by 2005 to have 45,000 operations. So it goes to show you that the forecasting is truly just a pie in the sky forecast so that we can anticipate any larger increases. Historically, if we look at the actual numbers, we still to this day are averaging anywhere from 4,500 operations to, and I confirmed this earlier with our operations specialist, this year we'll average about 8,000 operations for the year. So we haven't capped the 10,000 operations since 1986, and again, the forecasted data is based on national trends that we put and have based on recommendations by the FAA. But true numbers are under 10,000.
Okay. Other questions?
Mike Davis. I just like to make some comments. I think there were a couple of mistakes made starting, I don't know, 45, 50 years ago when the airport was moved from standard register site over to where it is now. I don't think, in retrospect, that was a very good decision considering its location and the community of East Middlebury. And the second mistake that was made was allowing for residential development east of the airport. So you got two bad situations here. And I'm saying let's not make it worse. Guy already said today that lengthening the airport by 700 feet is going to bring it up to the B1 standard, which is going to allow more planes in there. So you're going to make a bad situation worse. There's a lot of people, there's 600 families, households in East Middlebury. And, you know, the majority of those are right south of that airport. So, you know, the economic value of that airport is questionable. I pay more taxes on my $115,000 house with 1.25 acres than the state of Vermont pays on that airport. So I just ask you to keep that in mind, that extending this runway is going to make matters worse. It's not going to make them better for the majority of people that live out near that airport. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So my name is Judy Weiger-Gross. My mailing address is Middlebury, but I live in East Middlebury. And my concern is not for the human population near the airport. Instead, it's for the bat population near the airport. I have been in correspondence with a number of environmental organizations, and I do want to make you aware of the fact that 5 out of the 6 bat populations that live in the area parallel to the airport on Schoolhouse Hill Road are designated threatened or endangered by the state of Vermont or the federal government. I guess one of my questions might be, are you aware of the fact that harassment of a federally designated endangered species is illegal?
I can answer that question.
Sure.
The 2009 environmental assessment that was approved by the environmental officer of the Federal Aviation Administration did identify that long-eared bats and Indiana bats were on the north side of the airfield. We did, through the environmental assessment, we agreed to provide a corridor for the bats on the north end. We're aware of it, and we will not be doing any clearing in that area to meet not only the finding of no significant impact that's driven by Environmental Protection Agency, but also the FAA. So we're aware of it. The environmental manager for FAA has come up with an alternative, and we will adhere to exactly that.
Okay.
Part of the issue, if you're aware of this piece, is some of the work is being done during the winter, and the bats do not roost during the winter. They're hibernating back up on the ledges. They are roosting, however, during the summer, and construction and increased traffic, which was mentioned earlier, will in fact be occurring during the summer. In answer to the question I asked before, is that harassment of federally designated endangered species is illegal, and there are fines and penalties associated with that. And the Wildlife Management Program Manager suggests that we, along with town officials, including the Design and Review Board, work together from here on out to ensure the safety of those populations, because the current situation and what the future implications are for those populations are not one and the same.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Hi, I'm Lewis Holmes. I live on Burnham Drive, right about here. A clarification, I understand that for the purpose of appeals, you have to speak or submit something by the end of the meeting. Are you not receiving any information, further documentation, comments, anything after the meeting?
Correct.
Period.
Yep. After the close of the hearing.
Yeah, after the close, unless we recess the hearing, then we would.
Okay.
But
'Cause it-
if we close the hearing, there will be no more testimony.
Okay, I understand. It seems to tilt the tables fairly heavily in favor of the applicant because they have to submit all their written stuff prior to this, and people coming to the hearing don't know necessarily what they need to submit until they arrive, and as you know, you don't normally get this many people.
However, ultimately, it's the DRB's decision to decide whether or not they have the information they think they need to make a decision about the very few things they have local level jurisdiction over in this particular situation.
Right.
So they could continue that hearing if they felt like they were short something they needed to make a decision. Yeah.
Sure. And that was clarification comments.
Yep.
My comment is that, as was mentioned, this has become an increasingly residential area since the airport has been here. There are now dozens of homes for the Woodlands, dozens of homes for the first Forest Ridge, and then another 44 approved by the DRB several years ago to go right here, all on the west-facing ledge, perfectly tilted to receive all the noise from the airport. I don't have any problem with the airport the way it is. I've lived across from it for 19 years. I think the surface is in terrible repair. I think having that resurfaced, having the taxiways fixed, makes sense. What I had been hoping for from this process, not this process, but this process, through interactions with the community, would have been similar to what happened when Carrera wanted to expand their quarry and engaged in a long set of dialogues with the community and worked, compromised, talked, brought each other's points, understood what was going on, and they reached a middle ground. The reason that the length of the runway is proposed the way it is simply for the FAA funding. The 3,200 doesn't fit any other magical number, or there's nothing safer, dramatically safer at 3,200 or 3,000 or 2,800. One of the things that has not been brought up is if the state accepts FAA money for this project, it relinquishes the ability to have any control over activity that goes on there. So, for example, the FAA forbids with its money you cannot regulate lights, you cannot regulate navigation. Lights like navigation lights, you can have nighttime operations. It doesn't allow you to regulate navigational equipment. It doesn't allow you to regulate private or commercial activity. So if the FAA proposal goes forward, the DRB and the town is essentially saying, fine, we relinquish our ability to have any future impact on all of commercial activities. And it's very specific about all the things that may not be regulated. And it's one thing to expand operations potentially during daylight hours, and the commercial activity that might expand is not so onerous. It's during the week, something comes in, gets worked on, goes out. That's not a big deal. What's a bigger deal is the unregulated private activity that's going to happen, particularly on the weekends if it's longer, and college parents are able, and trustees and whatever, are able to come in on nice weekends. But if lights are permissible, and down the road somebody wants to install lights, and the state and the town have no ability to regulate that, that's an enormous change. And you do have the ability to consider the character and the nature of the neighborhoods. And this is a medium-density residential neighborhood all along here. I know this is a PUD and it's separate, but it still impacts it. There you go. Thank you.
Can I comment on those?
Sure.
Just briefly, every airport in the state of Vermont that the state owns, with the exception of Island Pond, has accepted federal funds in the last few years. So those grant assurances, there's 38 of them, are already in place at this airport. So this airport has already accepted federal funds. Secondly, the airport currently is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, open to the public airport. There are airplanes that land there without runway lights now. So I wanted to make that point. There was a comment about unregulated. if we accept this funds. I don't know of any other agency, and I deal with the Agency of Transportation, Federal Rail, Federal Highway, also public transit. FAA is probably the most regulated agency that I've dealt with, and we have the regulations in place to ensure that aircraft and pilots are following very regimented, structured environment, operating in a very regimented and structured environment. The last thing I would say is if this project does not at all, nor have we offered up anything to do with any runway lights at all. The merits of this project, as I'm sure you folks are aware, does not have any reference to runway lights. If the agency at another time were to bring that forward, then at that point we would ask that that particular project is looked at on its own merits, but not in this project.
Other questions? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Donald Glauber. I live on Oak Drive. I can see the airport from my house, from my back windows. And I'm not going to repeat anything that was said that I thought was important to be said, but in case you are not aware, and I suspect you well are if you read the ADDI, that there's been an enormous number of meetings, public meetings, and smaller meetings by residents since this project first came up. And I want to applaud, and I've gotten to know fairly well many members of VTrans because we've had many conversations and a lot of questions and information's gone back and forth. And the very first meeting, which was about a year ago this time, I think there was the expectation that with the invocation of the notion of safety, it would be a done deal and everybody would go home and this thing would already be happening. But looking beyond the surface and taking into account many of the issues you've already heard, not only safety of pilots coming and going from the airport, but safety and quality of life issues that affect the many residents around, it became a more complex conversation. And more questions got asked. And I need to amplify what Louis was saying about the question of FAA, because as a result of some of the really rather sincere and legitimate concerns of many residents, there were some very entailed, deep meetings between high-level people in VTrans and a small group representing all the communities to identify what would be the limits on future possible development, lights, and other things. And it was working towards a document. But then the question arose, but wait a minute, is VTrans in a position to make any of those assurances for the future when they're accepting the majority of the money from the FAA? And the answer was, we don't know. When they went back to get clarification, the answer was, accompanied by an apology, that no, we can't give those assurances. And I hopefully sympathize with you, Kevin, when the first question you asked after the initial presentation was, is there an intention for airport traffic to increase? Because the answer is always kind of agnostic, because their intention isn't to bring in more planes because it's public. But one of the early answers we received was it's only operation during the day. And I'm not sure what changed to say, no, it's 24-hour, all night, people can come and go. But I guess that question of how much of the safety is geared to, this is a unique opportunity because we can get 90% of the funding from the FAA and they dictate what constitutes safety. And so they may have a lot of safety criteria when it comes to the pattern and the behavior of pilots and operation of airplanes, but the dictates of, or the requirements of the FAA when they largely fund a project in terms of concerns for the impact on community, basically the answer we received at this point was that is not their concern, and if you do take the money, this overrides the ability of VTrans and of the local community to have any control over that. And that's quite concerning and alarming, because the difference between hearing 4 or 5 flights a day and having 50 a day because of things that happen that are completely out of our hands, that's something that we would hope there'd be more knowledge and clarification before moving forward. Sorry if that doesn't come across as a question, but I hope you'll ask questions to clarify whether that obligation. By the way, one thing mentioned is that we've had many big meetings, and one of the largest ones that was at the airport with over 100 residents and numerous questions that went on for 3 hours on a very hot summery night. At that meeting, many of the questions were answered by the present commissioner of VTrans, Chris Cole, and somebody asked him the question directly about the connection between the money and the safety, And someone asked directly, if you got your grant turned down and you did not get this money, would you still do the extension? And his answer was no. We would have to find the money to resurface what's there, but the extension is only possible because we're getting federal funds. So I think that caused a lot of questioning about the scope and how we define safety and what's best for Middlebury. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask based on?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yep.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, we've already accepted federal money at this airport,
We did 2 years ago.
so we're already under
Grant
those
assurances.
restrictions. So we already have limited control based on accepting that federal money. Previously accepting that federal
Well,
money.
to put it into context, when you say limited control, the control means that if there's a safety issue on the airfield, the FAA says that it's our duty, by accepting the money, to correct those non-standard or safety issues. So to put that into context, it specifically says in those grant assurances, and there are 38 of them, one of them says that thou shalt in the future ensure or do everything you can within your powers to make sure that somebody doesn't put a 80-foot tower right in the approach, under the approach surface, or if you hear that a school is going to be built right under the approach surface or things of that nature. Those are things that the FAA would like us to follow up on.
I guess the reason I was asking is in our packet of information, it very specifically stated what we have jurisdiction over and what we don't. And it sounds like a lot of what's being asked, we don't have jurisdiction over already. So we're being asked by residents to consider stuff that we currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, given your staff memo, we don't have jurisdiction on these things right now.
Right, but that's a conversation for you guys when you deliberate. And it's
Okay.
better to let people get things off their chest, I think.
Okay.
The only thing,
I guess I just want to clear from my own decision process, you know, where we are.
sure, and just to clarify, there's a couple of different things in that in terms of your jurisdiction. There are jurisdiction limitations to any DRB throughout the state for review of any state facility, whether it's an airport, whether it's a building project, it doesn't matter. The state has, and I'm sure you're aware of that, said these are the things that you are, as a local community, allowed to look at or regulate on state facilities. Then there's another layer on top of that, which is some of the FAA standards and things that the federal government have given privy to the FAA, specifically, that the state can't regulate either. And so there's a couple different layers in here. We try to provide some guidance or information to you in those venues, just so that as you deliberate, hopefully you understand what those limitations are.
Ask one more.
Sure.
And I guess this is for Kevin and Jennifer, and maybe we have to ask them, but do we have local authority to put a condition in that has to do with classification of airport or aircraft changes as part of this permit? Or is that beyond our local authority?
Not to diffuse your question, but that's definitely a good question for deliberative session. It's
Okay.
a really good question when we deliberate and get into the bits and pieces. I guess I would just propose that we collect all the information from everyone and then try to run
Okay.
that through the filter of what we have control over.
Okay,
And then if there's
Yeah.
some things left over we do have control over, we can create some conditions.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just have one comment on that. If we have not, or we did not put it in your packet, we could give you the 38 grant assurances from that. It's a very slippery slope to go down to say that you're putting conditions to permits that the FAA has federal preemption on. So we can certainly, if you guys wanted it, if we didn't put it in the packet, we could provide the grant assurances.
Guy, from your experience, and maybe you can't answer this, would there be a specific trigger or a number of flights at the Middlebury Airport that they would come in and say that you would have to put in night lighting?
Not so much with the lighting. There would not be, no. The FAA would not come in and say you need to put lighting in with a certain number of operations.
Okay.
There is one trigger that I could speak to.
Sure.
And that is at 10,000 operations, the FAA would like us to then do additional noise monitoring on the airfield just to ensure that the impacts on the airfield with 10,000 operations or above are monitored to see if there are perhaps mitigation that we could put into place. The airport has not crossed that threshold. And I can tell you that even if it hasn't, although it hasn't crossed it, we did a lot of noise integrated modeling. We also modeled on the airport at the public's request in one of our public meetings. And then we did additional off-airport modeling, very similar to in following what was done at the Carrera project. So we did it off-airport, and we have those reports, and we have from an engineer, separate engineer from DuBois and King. It was RSG. They have that modeling and can tell you exactly, based on our forecasted data, that really high number, what the increase in noise would be. That's a trigger that the FAA would ask for us to do more modeling, which would be 10,000 operations. Okay.
Mike?
Just like to remind the board that Vermont AOT told the town of Middlebury that their bridge had to be 22.6 high, and that was because the federal government wanted the bridge 22.6 high, and there was no way that that could be changed. Well, I think we're finding out now that that height can be changed. So please, don't make your decision on information from Vermont Agency of Transportation that you can only do certain things because of the FAA. Please, because we know that that's not true. The federal government will bend. Use your common sense.
Any other questions or comments that we haven't?
One clarification on the FAA. Both Chris Cole and Michelle Boomhauer from the administration stated definitively that they are not restricted in making the offers that they made until this project, 3,200 feet, is accepted with the FAA money. That what they've done so far is not what's limiting them. It's accepting the money for this project. So if they did this project at 2,900 feet, repaved it, didn't get quite as fancy with the FAA money, then you would have the ability to weigh in the future. If they come forward with a proposal for lights after this project has been accepted by the FAA requirements that go with the money, you actually don't have any ability to talk about lights. So it's nice to offer to come forward, but it won't matter. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to make several points. One, it was...
Which?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Karen Glauber. Michelle Boomhauer did state at one of our public meetings that any money taken from the FAA to this point could be returned. So it's not a done deal just because we have taken money. The other thing I'd like to say is my husband commented about Chris Cole saying that if we didn't have FAA money, what would we do? That was my question to him. I want this to be clear. I asked him the question, what would we do if we didn't have FAA money at this time? And he said, we would resurface the existing structure. We would not add to it. I said, Chris, I thought this was a safety issue. He said it would be adequate to just resurface what's there. Okay, so taking that FAA money really changes everything for this community. I also wanted to point out that I have a question for the gentleman from DuBois and King about the safety being the only basis for this, because in reading over the Middlebury Airport Master Plan, it seems quite clear that for more than 20 pages, it's discussed that economic development is key to expanding the airport. So my question is, why would you not include that in what you're saying before the committee?
I'm not clear what your question is.
My question is, it seems as if we've been informed tonight that the sole purpose of this is for safety, but VTrans, in their plan for the Middlebury Airport, has said in great detail that this is about economic development.
So that's a comment. That's a
And
good comment.
my question is, why is that not being included?
And that's not a fair question, because that questions the integrity of our applicant. So why don't we note that as a comment, that you're saying
Fine.
safety is not the whole picture?
It seems not to be the
Yeah,
entire
okay,
picture.
thank you for that.
And there is also some statistics about the community of East Middlebury that might have some bearing here. One is that it is uniquely growing in this state for its population under 18 years of age. That is fantastic for this community. Our schools need it desperately. I think increasing air traffic at an airport will turn that around. People do not want noisy airports in their communities. The chance of a flight school coming will mean constant takeoffs through the day if they're attracted to the airport. That would be economic development. So I think we need to consider this not just in terms of the airport itself, but what it will mean for other growth in the area. And just the question of why, Guy, when you referred to 10,000 flights, that's more than double what we actually have now. So on the one hand, it seems like we're saying there won't be an increase, but the number of 10,000 flights keeps coming up. So maybe an increase. Thank you. I appreciate listening.
Yeah, Ross Conrad again. I just want to address the statements about traffic forecast, and then I have a question for all of you. It was stated that, the prediction is there's going to be no increase in traffic. They don't increase. They don't predict that. And that's legitimate, because a prediction is, it can be anything, and everyone has their own prediction. I'm not questioning their integrity. What I would ask you to do is actually look at the documentation. This sound study predicted an increase in traffic activity approximately 2.5 times over current activity. The business plan states more than once that to increase economic activity at the airport, we want to extend the runway, and you will have more traffic, more economic activity, more business. These are the documents. So I would, rather than go with predictions, I would suggest you go with actual documents. And so my question for you comes out of this town plan, our town plan. Regarding the runway on page 86, it states the planned runway extension, additional hangars, and related parking should be permitted only on the assurance that management of aircraft operations will not result in an unreasonable additional disturbance to surrounding residential areas. So given that we're going to have a lot more traffic, given that once we take this money, we've got lights coming, we've got automated aeronautics coming so people can land at night easier and more often, at what point would you say there is an unreasonable additional disturbance? When do we hit that threshold?
Again, the board doesn't need to answer that question. That's a hypothetical question that they will need to figure out in deliberation, and I wouldn't expect them to answer that right now. So thanks for your comments.
Could I just make one comment in response to that? There's a lot of reference to the numbers. What the board needs to understand is the number of operations at this airport were substantially higher in the past than they are today. What we saw was a decline, and this is across the country, in general aviation airports following 9/11, that the number of operations of aircraft to GA airfields decreased. The other factor that came into play was a very high spike in aviation fuel costs, which also curtailed the number of operations and flights that people were making. And so the 4,500 that you're hearing that was stated is the number projected from the RSG noise assessment work that was ongoing here this last year based on actual operations today. And they projected to 11,000 to be consistent with the master plan and the projections, so that they would be looking at what they might, or we might see for noise if in fact the airport got back to operations that it had seen in the past, or out there at the same levels as the master plan were projecting. So just keep in mind that the 4,500 is not the historical value of operations at this airport. They were significantly higher. There was a flight school at this airport in the past, and so some of the things that you're hearing are not historically accurate.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board members? Okay. Would there be a motion to adjourn the hearing for?
Mr. Chair, could I just ask one question?
You'll either close or continue.
Yes.
Would you like us to submit to you as a condition of closure the offer that Guy made on the FAA grant assurances? We'd be happy to do that if that would help you. We could send those to you tomorrow. If you feel you've got enough information, we're happy as well. So that's really your decision.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Okay.
I think I would like to see that piece of information part of the record.
You can send it tonight. You have Wi-Fi here, I can send it in.
So if the board specifically requests that piece of information, and if it is legal in nature, which it is, then that can be submitted after the fact, because it wouldn't really be an exhibit or testimony. It's just like additional legal information that staff would bring to the deliberation to help you understand the parameters of your decision-making process. So if you close the hearing, I can still get that information for you.
All right.
Okay.
So there's a motion to close the hearing. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Moved to second. Further discussion on the motion?
If your decision is contingent upon them sending you assurances, there are several of us who received copies of information that listed all of the things that once FAA money is accepted that we can't do. And I'd be more than happy to send you that list of things tomorrow.
So how about we say that we just don't want anything, period? I mean, what can't happen is a landslide of documentation submitted after the fact, and then, people playing with the nuances of if it can or can't come in. I mean, at some point, you need to draw a line. So I guess.
But one of the things, again, that you want to understand is that the acceptance of this money means.
It's their decision what they want to understand. It's their decision what they still need.
Yeah, I guess that's the case.
Sorry.
Okay, so the motion was to close the hearing, but is that with the assumption that we're going to get further information from the applicant? Okay. Do we want more I guess.
The recommendation of staff was no.
Okay, so,
Right.
right, so no more information. Okay, so all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All in favor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
As my recommendation specifically was, if you feel you've got enough, close it, don't just, yeah. I mean, technically, I can bring more information to the table if it's, like I say, if it's legal in nature, if you don't understand some particular piece of evidence or something like that, but it's a technicality. I don't understand it well enough to present it.
Today's
Yeah, as far as spending like new testimony, new evidence, that's definitely a no-no.
It was just to close the public hearing. So we'll go into, well,
We're going to,
They have 45 days to render a decision.
There's no more, are you going to do it at a public meeting or do you?
The latter,
yeah, we'll probably do it in deliberative session.
like, just because they're a quasi-judicial board, they can do that. It makes it that, like the planning commission can't, the energy commission can't. But, yeah, I'm so glad that you understand what I'm trying to do, Russ. Thank you so much. Okay, good. All right, good.
The cameras are still rolling.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not being bossy, am I?
No, you're doing fine.
Okay, good.
Kevin, Kevin,
I need a gavel.
Kevin, you want
Yeah,
to
you
suspend
do.
the,
Or an air
suspend this for a minute till we get everybody out of here? You want to have her shut it off?
Yeah,
Get
still
these
in the
people
meeting,
out
but
of here.
haven't opened the second public hearing, I guess.
We have another hearing.
Needs a gavel.
Mr. Keeler, you can come back.
Oh, you're next.
No, sit down.
More fun when you get old than you did when you're younger.
Yeah?
So what's next?
A&W.
Okay, the mini golf is next. Mini golf. Yes.
Keeler, would you like to join us? Next item on the agenda is an application by Tony Neary for site plan and conditional review of a proposed miniature golf facility to be located behind the existing A&W Drive-In Restaurant. The property is located at 1557 Route 7 South in the PH zoning district. Were you here for the oath? Oath?
Yes,
Was everybody else that's left here for the oath? So you, okay. So would you like to present your project to us?
I'm going to close that door, Kevin.
I'll wait for Mr. Keeler, who I know is an expert on miniature golf.
Thank you.
It's okay, use the other one. I don't know if you have that little photograph or where the A&W is listed behind, it says near. There's a power line that comes down through that goes behind the A&W. You don't really see it here, but see, that's the A&W. Goes right across and crosses over into Delineation Corporation.
Yes.
Land. And there's a 40-foot right-of-way from the center of the power line both ways.
Correct.
That means I can't use this parcel of land where I want to put miniature golf for a building, which I would also like to put on that land, but not there. So, if you look at a little map that I had for you guys, I think you got it,
Yes,
kind of
we have a
a
copy.
drawing of a golf course. Here's the A&W, and that power line goes right down through, just like that. So they tell me it's fine, put the cars parked here and whatnot, and use this land for a miniature golf, but not for any kind of a structure, steel structure, like I would like to put here, because it's too close and lightning will jump from one tree to another, from what they tell me. So that's why I came to the conclusion to use that land. The best use would probably be a miniature golf or a parking lot. And that's where that all started. It's that simple. It's 18 holes, and there's a couple of trick holes, and some things that, as far as the drainage goes and water around it, there's a ditch all the way around it, and all the water comes from the north end down and into a culvert, and goes right under Route 7 and heads to that wetland, as you can see where Delineation Corporation is, right here. And that's really it. Now, is the building,
What is the building going to be used for?
the building would be used for storage to start with, but you have a picture of the building?
Yeah, I have a picture of it.
No, it looks like a horse barn.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to put horses in here. Underneath that building on the side, I want to put tables. So inclement weather, we can, people can come in and sit there, sit at the tables, and eat from the A&W or play golf and sit there or whatever. The golf course will be right next to it. And eventually, we would operate out of that building to take care of the little mini golf. But I think to start with, I could start up at the A&W, handing the clubs and balls to play the golf course. But I got to put a lot of fencing in.
Okay, so the use of the building, right now, you're predicting it to be used for storage?
Storage, yeah.
Okay. And what could it possibly be used for?
Well, in the future, it could be used for a number of different things. I'm not
Why
gonna-
why I ask, because that'll make a difference on the number of parking spaces.
Right, I understand that. I think right now, there's plenty of parking for that building and for the miniature golf, as well as the, if you look at it, as well as the A&W parking, which is up here, up above. The building's 50 by 150. Eventually, it could be used for a number of things. The front part of the building could be, we had talked about putting in soft ice cream. The A&W presently sells only hard ice cream. And the reason for that is, of course, timing. How long does it take versus having dinner and hard ice cream versus soft ice cream? So we would probably use the front part of that. So if I build it, I got to build it with the recommendations the state would give me pertaining to food, beverage. But we talked about batting cages out back and a number of different things. Right now, I think it's just storage, and it would be for quite a while until we can determine what the demographics will be in Middlebury for something like this. It's hard to operate anything year-round when you're in this kind of business. So we look at a solid 4 months and get 6 months out of it. 4 months of really good business, and the other 2 months of slower time.
Okay, what is going to be your main access to this miniature golf and building?
It comes right off of Route 7 and goes right through the lot. We were going to put a side road in. I talked to Duncan about it, and I talked to Gardner's Stone's kids about it. They didn't really have a problem with it, but then we decided, no, that would just complicate things, would make things tougher for us, because then there'd be a flow. Right now, they just drive in, they park like they do now. The trailers park down there. We try to get them to get off of Route 7 and go down there. And I've never seen that back lot ever full, even on our busiest weekends. Yeah, the back lot.
That's existing now?
Yeah,
Is it going to stay gravel?
probably for a while until I can afford it.
Okay.
Now, on your plan here, you're showing the access road. You're no longer
No, that's no
proposing
longer
that.
there, right, that's not there. meant to take it out, but just scratch it out. Yeah,
Tony, when we approved this in 2012, you didn't have the access road then either.
right, no. But I didn't have trees and all the things that they required me to do what I'm doing. I planted, what you see there, it's all 25, 30 pine trees and 5 or 6 of those fluffy things. I don't know what they call them. Trees.
So your access
Would be off of Route 7.
to the back parking,
Right,
you're going to have to
through
go, are you going to have to go between 2 areas of parking next to the A&W, the ones that are close to the building, as well as the ones that,
Yeah, you go right between them.
right between them?
Yep. It's wide enough, there's plenty of room. And they could come in from either side. I mean, I can probably put another drop down on the north side of it, but I would hate to. This way it can be controlled a lot better with the one passageway off of Route 7 right straight into the parking lot.
Well, do you have, let's say, a curb cut?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about an existing,
No, there is.
just the existing?
When it comes in, the curb cuts are there.
Yeah.
It's, the state highway curb cuts.
Okay. So say if you did put something on the north side of the A&W building, would it be the same type of access between the two, the cars parking close to the building and the ones that are
Well,
parked?
I think it'd be a smaller access. The size coming in from Route 7 is identical on both sides.
Yeah.
But if I drop down, see, this miniature golf probably won't be seen from Route 7 because the highway is higher than this land is, a lot higher. So I would have to drop down and put a road in. I'd say, what, 10, 12 feet difference between the height on top and the back lot?
Well, the basement of the A&W used to be the top.
Used to be A&W.
Used to be the top floor.
So they raised the road 8 feet, right?
Donald, do you have a question?
I did. And this is deja vu all over again. We're back to talking about going through the parking lot, and I think it's not a good plan. And I told you this the first time. You got attendants walking back and forth between cars. You got two-way traffic going out of there. I just think it's a time bomb. But as I told you back then, you got to live with it. Something happens, you own it. I just don't think it's a good plan. So.
Well, the other access isn't feasible. I mean, I don't know any other way to get there except cut another, and the state won't give it to me anyway, access to around where, along that line and go down this way. The state won't give it to me. They already told me that.
You can't use the southern exit and eliminate those row of cars and put your road in there? I mean, it would make much sense if you didn't have that row of cars and you had a lane there.
Yeah, I know, but this is where the picnic table area is.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same, what you're saying is, it's the same problem I'm going to have because I have the people going to the picnic area. They park everywhere to get to the picnic area.
Well, wouldn't you encourage them to go to the parking lot in the rear and then walk to the picnic table? Wouldn't that make no sense?
Well, I hate to lose those spaces too.
You see, I understand.
See, it's one or the other.
Tony,
I understand.
we talked about this the last time. I just think that going through people backing and driving and attendance is just not a good plan, in my opinion. But it's your plan, and if you think it works, then,
Well,
I just
I
think
mean, if
about
I
somebody
see it
getting
as a
hurt.
problem or my insurance company gives me a problem, well, we can take a good look at that and try to anticipate the difference in the income with these spaces gone, keeping these spaces here,
But aren't you gonna have to designate a right-of-way for this to the back?
That's right, direct from Route 7.
Right, but
There anyway.
this is the A&W lot,
Right.
okay? You're now trying to take a partial of the A&W lot to access the parcel in the rear, right?
Yeah.
Okay, without giving up anything.
Right.
Right. I understand as a businessman, Tony, I know what you're trying to do. I am just saying, I don't think that's a good decision with having pedestrians and people driving up, backing across the travel portion of the road, trying to get to a parking lot in the rear. To me, I think that would be a nightmare, but but I said that before, when you proposed it before. There's no change in my plan. I would like to see a different access, a designated, restricted access that allows you to get back there and protect it.
How would I protect another access when it's?
Well, no, you would have to probably put something along the south side so that the road actually exists between where the picnic tables are and where that row of cars are backed in usually. They don't come in and drive in there, Tony. They drive in. I eat there a lot, so I know how it works.
Oh, good,
You
thank
drive
you.
in there, you pull up, and you back in. You should not be backing across the road where people are trying to get to a parking lot in the back. I just think it's hectic.
I never looked at it like it was a real big deal. That's why it just is what it is. But if I thought my insurance company would have a problem with this, I'm sure that I could probably make the changes. I hate to lose those spaces. I'd have to go on the south side of that 150 by 50 building, and instead of an access area to get to the back of the building, I'd have to put parking all along in there also, which would be a little harder to do. See what I mean?
I know what you mean, Tony.
But if I thought I had a problem with the insurance company, which is a problem enough,
People are creatures of habit. They're not going to walk when they can drive to the front door of the A&W.
that's right.
You know that?
Yeah,
and I
that's
know
why they
that.
park underneath the canopy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Tony, did you get do you have to get a access permit because you're expanding the use of the property from Vermont Trans?
Well, actually, they gave me a permit to take all this water from way out here and run it down.
No, I'm talking about,
And down into their culvert. Is that what you're talking about?
no, the access.
Well, they wouldn't give me a permit for another entranceway, I asked the question. So,
Okay, so,
But you probably got one now, right? Like curb cut permit, sometimes they call it an 1111 permit.
Yeah.
You probably have one now. I think it would have to be amended probably for the increased traffic flow. What do you think, Jason? Probably, right? Yeah.
Tony?
Thank you.
And they might have some recommendations like Don's making too.
If I can ask the question?
Should Tom look at this?
Well, that was, go ahead, ask that question, because I was going to.
Should Tom Hanley look at this to get I mean, we have to do it for fire and
Yeah.
police, right?
I think one note here. In the past, we've assumed that this board has continuing jurisdiction, but we have found out very recently that we do not have continuing jurisdiction. So as problems come up, we have no recourse. So I think maybe our philosophy probably should be changing a little bit so that we make sure we have the information that we feel comfortable with, especially when it comes to safety. And so I think we want to make sure, and I think it would be a good idea to have Tom look at this. But what I think he's going to want is maybe a better diagram or drawing, be it an engineer or what, of exactly the numbers, parking places, the distances, the length of them, the distance between them, so we have an idea on what that corridor that you're going to be using as access to the rear property really is, and whether we have, whether it's safe. That's what we want to make sure.
What would Tom, police department, what would his jurisdiction be in that?
Well,
Same as Maplefield.
He would make recommendation as to whether he thought it would be a safe traffic plan. Both, I assume.
But again, my point would be, okay, he could say, well, I don't think it's safe. All right, so then we would have that information. I mean, really, the onus is on the property owner, in this case Tony, that it's not safe, he knows it's not safe, he's taking a chance, somebody gets run over there by a 16-wheeler, then Tony's got to deal with that. I mean, where would the police...
Even before you get to Tom Hanley's comments, if you do decide to require an engineered plan,
Yeah.
then that's part of why engineers get paid, is to like go through all these pros and cons and all the thought process you're going through now.
Yep.
And if the client wants something a certain way, then they can work with that client to figure out what the best compromise is, so that you got a finished product, you know, when they come back. And then from there, you'd get Tom Hanley's comments. But I know that you want to get started right away, so that leaded me to think about like phases.
The building isn't, you know, something that I have to do right now anyway. I mean,
Okay.
it doesn't matter, but the miniature golf can be handled through the A&W window. Right now, they're going to hand a club, a ball, and a little piece of paper and a pencil. You know, and then they're going to go down there and play, and they can bring it back if they want the deposit back. I mean, that's what my plan was for now, to get that thing, trying to get it going. It's going to take quite a while to do anyway, you know, especially, probably take all summer to build.
So I think that would be a helpful conversation to have while Mr. Neary's here, is about, you know, what he'd want to do first and what the phases might look like, if he did one
That's what
piece
I'd
now and
really
another
like to do
later.
First, the miniature golf, and not so much the building.
The-
Although storage is now needed in Middlebury pretty badly.
So the actual course, and then using the existing parking with that actual course?
Yeah, just the course. It's leaving everything the same. I mean, if someone is parked in this area around the A&W and on the south side of it, they can go to the window, get the golf club, you know, hopefully they'll park out back. That's really not the case with people. They can park where they want to park.
I should say something about that continuing jurisdiction. I may have led you wrong on it. So you don't have any recourse to make him come back before the DRB and redo the decision to create conditions that weren't there in the first place. You know, if you want to just say, we've got continuing jurisdiction, we can call you back if we're not happy with the parking or the traffic. That's what was happening in the past. But what you can do is you can have a condition in there, and then if he violates the condition, it would be a zoning violation that might have to go in front of the DRB. So you can have a conditioned approval with conditions in it that set parameters,
Okay.
Including the building.
or you could phase it out and say, you know, to do here's what phase one would be, and here's what you'd have to satisfy to do phase one. And then this is what phase two would be, and here's what you'd have to satisfy for phase two. I don't know.
You can already build a building, you have the permit to do that, right?
No.
Well, yeah, I really don't have the permit.
I haven't seen a permit for that.
I thought we granted,
That approval lapsed because there was no filing of final plans.
didn't know that.
So we're starting over.
Shame on me.
That and money has something to do with it.
Really does.
Yeah, it usually does.
Heather, you got a question?
You know.
So this might be a question for Kevin and Jennifer. The drawing shows setbacks on the sides and front. Do the setbacks on the sides not pertain to the parking or miniature golf? Do those only pertain to the buildings?
I think to the buildings.
Should be the building.
Okay, so then the golf course and the parking can go right to the edge of the property?
The golf course? On the north?
Yeah, is that correct, Jennifer?
I gotta look it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm
Yards.
sure it is. I mean,
There's a list of allowable projections into yards, which we can just read together. Driveways, walkways, lawns, trees, shrubbery, gardens, you know, sills, belt cornices, architectural type things. Passive solar, detached solar, fire escapes, balconies, ramps, decks. So it says driveway, but it doesn't really say parking. So just looking at it initially now, I'm not seeing parking. There might be something else cabbaged in the regulations somewhere. I could do a word search on parking if I was on my computer.
So
So
So I guess I, at this point, don't feel comfortable. I have two issues one, from my recollection of the property and having been there, that the access to that existing parking area now is only wide enough for one car to go through?
No.
Is wide enough for two?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
At least. Down, once
And-
you leave the asphalt and move down into the parking area, right where that area is there, it's quite wide.
Okay. It's hard to tell from this drawing what
Yeah, I
dimensions
know,
are.
it's not exact, I know.
And, no, that's fine. And then on the parking spaces, are those, if we counted those spaces, is that accurate for what's there? And can that parking lot be all the way to the edge of the property there? And the same with the golf course, can it be built right to the edge of the property?
Thought it was permitted to use that property, actually, we're from, the property line is still over enough, but I think it's 25-foot setback anyway. But on the golf course, I took it right to the edge.
And that's
Figure-
my question, is whether it can be done that way or not.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm asking.
I don't remember.
We're going to have to find out for sure.
Okay.
Do you have a survey of this lot?
Yeah, I do. I don't have
So
that.
it wouldn't be too much of an imposition to get that survey and get some things plotted on it,
Yeah, I can do that.
like the building and the parking and the
Put it right on it.
access widths, number of spaces for the A&W now,
How many spaces are there now?
up here.
It's 46.
Well, that's in the parking area.
Yeah,
Parking
it's
area.
46.
I'm talking about the paved parking. And
Oh, sorry.
And you'd plot the proposed building on it as well?
So you're talking about an engineered drawing at this point?
I think so, yes.
Mhm. What we can do is, if you give this, I don't know, if you decide that it has like a preliminary approval, that's not a binding approval, and we can put a nice letter together that has bullets of what you would want to see to go forward with it.
Yep.
I thought I gave you the survey on that.
I guess I'm okay with the
I don't know.
general idea of it. I just have questions
Yeah.
about,
I mean,
Well,
and that's essentially what we're saying, right? We could
So
give,
if we gave him
Yeah.
conceptual approval, but then we've got to find out if he can run the course right to the edge. That's one question.
Have you
And
do
the
that for
parking
me,
lot.
Jennifer,
And
get
then
me a
parking
letter.
area. How much space we need on each
What do you
side.
want?
Yeah, that'll be part
And I'll
of
get it
the
done.
decision here.
I'll get it done for you.
okay, do you know what else we want?
God only knows. Trees? I planted them already.
Southern pine?
No, actually, they don't grow very large. I don't know why.
Whether you need an access approval from the state?
From the State Highway Department?
Yep. We want to, we'll get the letter from Tom, the police chief, to see what he thinks, but we're going to need that engineering survey before, so that Chief Hanley can react to that.
I gotta find the survey on it.
Okay, well, that's,
Yep. And,
And you
You're
don't
talking
mean,
about an
you don't mean
engineered-
hand-drawn on the survey. You mean actually hire an engineer.
hire an engineer to do it.
yeah,
Not you, I don't
no,
want.
no, I have, no, I'm not.
Okay, it sounded kind of like you were just going to get it.
No,
Okay.
I have the survey that was done by Phelps Engineering when I purchased the property. That's what I'll use as the basis.
Are
to
there
try
any
to-
other issues that the board is concerned about?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just wondering will it show the proposed road and the width? And now obviously is that going to be 2 lane, right? Are you asking it to be 2 lane, Tony?
Well, it will be anyway. I mean, it is anyway. I mean, you can go in, it's wide enough to be 2 lane.
Right. Sometimes people would paint a road going through and it would be the width of 1 lane. I'm asking, would it be the width of 2 lane and what would it be? Just show the width between the 2 parking lots. So you'd have the parking lot on the south end and then the parking lot again. I'm just looking for the distance in the middle. See what I'm saying, Tony?
Yep.
I think Tom will ask you that. Just to remind you, Tony, that any time that a public access becomes accessible to the general circulation of the public, it becomes a public right-of-way. So that's why I mentioned that. So,
Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
yes. Charles parking lot is public parking. Anything that's open to general circulation of public right-of-way.
Okay.
If your engineer has any questions, you can contact the staff at the town, and hopefully we can inform them of what we're looking for.
All right.
Yeah, are there-
Oh, I got questions for you. I got a couple questions for the board.
Okay.
What do you think about outdoor lighting? Do you agree that we should show outdoor lighting on that plan?
Yes,
Yeah. And outdoor storage areas, I would think.
it's all inside.
Yeah,
Landscape.
it's
Oh,
all
okay.
inside on the building part of it, the lighting. I didn't even plan on lighting because,
Well, okay, if you don't,
I'll rent it this time, so what I'll do is I can put it in there if you want to see it. There's 9 lights that were involved, and I really didn't plan to stay open after, we closed the A&W.
you're talking about, we're talking about lights on the building,
Oh, you're
the
talking
new
about
building.
lights on the building?
Oh, yeah, that too. I was thinking of parking lot lights, but lights in the building too. They'll have to evaluate lighting. And they'd have to approve the location of any sort of dumpster or anything out there too, so your engineer should pop that on the plan. But like I say, I'll get you a letter with those things, but I just wanted to make sure you guys are okay with those things. Okay. And landscaping, we talked about. And then I just have a general board question as the zoning administrator. There was something I couldn't really decide about in here, and that was the golf course itself. Would it require a permit or not? Like if all he was doing was using his property to create the golf course as a standalone thing. And so I look in the section 510, what requires a permit? And I'm trying to decide if it's land development. Can I just read you the definition for land development?
Yeah.
So land development says the division of a parcel into 2 or more parcels, the construction, reconstruction, conversion, structural alteration, relocation, or enlargement of a building or other structure, or of any mining, excavation, or landfill, and any change in the use of a building or structure or land or extension of use of land. So then I got thinking about the excavation part, and it goes over here, excavation or landfilling for site preparation for land use changes, building or commercial, institutional or industrial development, topsoil, sand, or gravel removal or quarrying. So I wasn't really feeling like creating the golf course tripped that trigger, but how do you feel? How do you feel about it? I mean, it seems more like landscaping to me than excavation.
Did it change, was there a part in there where it said a change in use of the land?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Any excavation or landfilling for site preparation for land use changes.
So there is a land use change.
Oh, there is that too.
You're changing it from hayfield to a golf course, so
Okay, all right,
I would say yes.
okay. So then, I guess you guys are saying that he should work on that engineering plan before starting any construction out there? Okay.
Yes, because it's going to be 3 months before he can do anything out there anyway. He's got plenty of time. So, any other areas of concern? And if not, is there a motion for a conceptual approval?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
It's been seconded. Further discussion?
I'm going to put Scott down on that, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. I could hear him first.
And the applicant knows what we're looking for?
Yeah, who moved that, Heather?
Ruth made the motion, and then I'm going to say,
Oh, okay.
Don seconded it, but I heard Scott first.
I
so
heard Don
will-
first.
Give it to Don, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me.
So I have Ruth making the motion, and I have Scott seconding it.
Gotcha.
Further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
So Jennifer, you'll send me your letter.
Definitely, yep.
Next item, an application by Mr. Tony Neary for conditional use review to consider 2 setback waivers related to a proposed new 20,000 square foot warehouse building The property is located at 183 Industrial Avenue in the Industrial Zoning District. Mr. Neary?
I wanted to get a 30,000 square foot building in that space, but the more we try, the harder it looks. It's going to be tough to get. The college did send me an email saying they didn't have a problem. This is the land that's tied in right next to Middlebury College. I think you've got a picture of this.
We've got this here.
I didn't give you a copy of this. This will make your life easier.
Well, pretty simple to see. This is where the big building is. If you look at.
I did this for them. They all have it.
Oh, okay.
And the red is that little shed that you don't want to disturb.
Yeah, right. I can't spread it.
So this is
Okay.
with the setbacks they want, and this is with the waiver.
Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, thank you. Okay,
Yes. And if you need the
So you want to
setbacks,
save the
this is
pole
where-
barn or storage shed,
The red,
yep,
the little red building's brand new.
move the building,
It's a new building that is provided for files to use as a,
now the 5-foot setback is that very corner, would be the
that little
north
corner right there.
east corner.
Yeah. That, now, you know, the question I had for the town was, I talked to Jennifer about it. You see that little roundabout there?
Yeah.
Is that something that the town did because it was the end of the property and end of the road and they would just put a roundabout in? Or did they actually purchase that from the college? Or did I own it? Did I purchase it from the college when I bought the land? So the setback would be way back if I owned that.
That's right. So,
And I've
which
never-
is it?
I'm looking at it and say, wait a minute, the sewage treatment plant wasn't there, this road stopped right there, they had a turnaround so they could get their trucks back out of there, sand trucks. Who owns it? Now, maybe the college gave it to the town, you know how generous they are for the town. So, that could have been, I don't know that. But anyway, they agreed on any of the two different setbacks to waive it.
Do you have a survey of the property that you bought?
Yeah.
He's going to now.
Yeah, I do. And, but if you look at the lines with the survey, I mean, even with the engineering that was done on the big 30,000 square foot building, it,
Is the circle on your,
right here,
the circle is on your,
is on this plan.
okay.
So,
So when you purchased it, the circle is there?
yeah,
Okay.
So it's not
Good deal.
yours.
It's not yours.
yeah, well, wait a minute. It might be. And the reason I say that is that there must be a deed to the town for that road with that circle in it somewhere. Is that right?
That I don't know. You tell us.
Well, I don't
Somewhere in
know.
the clerk's office. They
I'm
probably
betting
should
over
be.
the years that became the circle by trucks driving around it.
Of course. That's exactly what happened.
Just of course what happened, of course it is.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, it's not a big deal. I'm just, I would like,
Can we collect some extra tax from you if we
I
do
have,
that?
well, you're doing pretty well now. We, I have two clients, and I can't discuss who they are.
so what,
And this is what this building is for.
before you get to there, on your survey, is the building where you want the 5-foot minimum setback, is that on that survey?
On here,
Yep.
yeah, it's right up, well, it's on this, you can see the corner of the drawing.
Okay, so how much distance between the south end of that building and the right-of-way?
God, it's only a few feet. That little corner.
No, that's the north, the
Right.
south side.
Oh, on the south side is, it's 25-foot setback from the college property. And the college property and mine come together right in the ditch, right in the center of that ditch.
Just to clarify, the building that's shown on his survey was drawn in with a pencil.
Okay. What I'm trying to get
Well,
at is
I had
most of,
an engineer
does
do it, though.
does most of the building meet the setback,
Yes,
except for that corner?
right, except for
That's
that,
what I want to know.
that north corner.
I thought it didn't meet it on the
No.
side.
Yeah, but I'm talking, the front. The
Yeah.
south, the side it doesn't, no.
Where, on the side, it does.
Oh, right here. It meets it right, it meets it here except for
Okay,
this one.
are you talking the east side? Let's
This,
yeah, the east side.
It
Yeah.
meets it, oh, yes, it meets it on the east
Meets it
side.
here.
Except for where that circle
Was
is.
where that's.
Where the circle is the problem.
Okay, all right. That's what I wanted. So most of the building does meet the setback, it's
Yeah.
just where that circle
Just where
is.
that circle is.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, I understood the diagram to say that it's also encroaching on the side?
Yeah, there is a.
Okay, but you mean within the front?
Front, yes.
I understand.
What's the red line that's going down through there, Tony?
That's, the actual red line is for the setback. If you go, you can follow
There's two
down.
red lines in the circle.
That showed up in my GIS. It looks like a sewer line or a water line.
Yeah, there's a water line and a sewer line.
Okay.
Can I ask a
The,
question?
You may.
Tony, is the post-new building going to be attached to the existing storage shed there?
No,
Is there going to be space between the two?
yeah, it's 25 feet
No.
between that little red building. It doesn't show it here, but that little building, we have setback there, I think I think it's 25 feet.
Between the little building and the
Yeah.
new one you propose to build?
Right. I was positive it was
When I
25.
scaled it out in the GIS, it didn't work out with
Didn't
that
work
much
that
room.
way?
No.
Well, then I'm short there, then that's the one that's in question.
Well, then you could always move it further into the front setback, I suppose, and request something. So I guess I requested a range of setback based on how this all shakes out for him in the end. It's a big structure, you know?
Does he have to have a setback between that storage shed and the building?
I imagine it could become an issue with the fire department, that
Yeah.
if, there's only 5 feet of space between those buildings, that
What,
they wouldn't be happy with it.
what's in the storage building? What do you,
They park the trucks at night. It's,
the red one
shed-
I'm talking
yeah,
about?
Existing.
just to park the trucks at night,
Propane truck.
propane trucks.
How many?
2, maybe 3 if they can get them in there. 2, and it's one of those, call it open sheds. You can't have sealed units.
So it's an open shed?
Yeah. Well, there's doors on it, but they're
Yeah,
open.
yeah,
They're,
I know.
Screens. Because you can't have a sealed unit, I guess, when you have propane trucks undercover, or you have to put replacement air in there.
Well, there are doors on that
There are
storage,
doors on them,
and
but
they're
they're-
shut.
They're shut, and there's screens all along the bottom.
Okay.
To get the air flow in the event there's a leak in the truck.
What about sort of skewing that building a little to the,
Well, that's
I guess,
what we,
northwest?
That's what we
So,
were trying to do, make the difference on what the cornering would be. But the 30,000 square foot building would be a problem. The 20 isn't really a problem. And I had one client that wants a 30,000 square foot building and one that wants a 20.
what is proposed here, what I'm looking at here?
This is the-
20,000?
This is the 20,000.
Okay,
Is that
but
right,
it's
Jennifer?
still,
Isn't that the one I gave you, the 20, or was it the 30? Jennifer? Was it the 30,000 I gave you?
Oh, no.
It
This
was
is
the
just
20.
the,
The 20,000 square foot building.
yeah.
The 30 really peaks the limits here.
okay.
You gotta
but
stretch it to get it in there.
What I'm getting at is, with the 20,000 square foot building right now, as it's proposed sitting on this lot, you've got a proposed 5-foot front setback, right?
From that corner.
From that corner. So if you moved that, let's say, north part of that building and went west a little bit, northwest, to get a better setback, I'm not sure whether you're going to get 25 feet out of it or not, but that's something that you'd have to go out there and figure out, then there wouldn't be an issue,
So,
right?
Yeah.
Except on the other corner. You're talking about tweaking it like this?
Yes.
Then
Then
you're
this
gonna
corner.
bring this corner closer to this property line, and you're gonna have,
You'd be over the 25-foot limit.
Well, not only moving it to the northwest, but maybe moving it more north and
except what is your setback has to be,
yeah,
you have
on
to
that,
have-
on the property line.
I don't know what the setback is right now, but how far can you go before you're also then encroaching on that setback?
Right.
So you can't approve less than a 5-foot setback in the front? Well, you can't approve less than a 5-foot setback anywhere. And so I figured if you approved a minimum 5-foot setback in the front and a minimum of, say, 17 on the side, in the absence of an engineered drawing, because you don't have an engineered drawing, then when he actually comes in and applies for the permit, then I can just put those conditions in the permit, and then it'll be up to you and your builder to figure out how to do that in compliance with the permit, or else it'll be a zoning violation, which you wouldn't want to do.
Kevin, my question
That
is...
seemed like the simple fix.
Don't you own both of those lots there? So you're going to have a setback to your own property?
That next one down is Delineation Corporation.
No, I'm talking about to the north. See those two lines? He owns all of that, so it
Where's, I'm sorry to have to look on that.
he owns both of these.
This says Town of Middlebury. Or was
No,
that that's the dogway.
that's Tony's building right here. He owns all of this.
Where Vermont Soap Company is, that's yours as well?
Yeah. See, there's no issue with setback.
Well,
He owns it.
not on that side.
Right.
Yeah, but we still have to, are they two separate parcels?
Exactly.
So he could sell that other parcel.
Right.
And if somebody else owned it, we'd observe those setbacks, so. Just because he owns it now, doesn't mean we want to put it in a situation where if he decided to sell it, there's an issue.
If you actually saw the distance between the corner of the building and where those trees are planted on the front here, I mean, it's huge. This is designed for tractor trailers that come in there. And there's 4 loading docks there. This one's going to have a couple of loading docks, and on one side and one on the other. And I also talked to the college about possibly buying the 2 acres south of me to avoid a problem if in fact I can get these people to commit to me to come into Middlebury. And I'd love to get both of them in here. They're 2 great little companies. They deal with products that I deal with now, and which are fun. They're both organic. One is a food company, and one is something else, organic. They're good, awful good people with some great ideas.
Pertinent information.
It's like the incubator space I created on Exchange Street. There's 4 small food businesses in there. If I can grab this one here, well, it'll be equal to what all 4 of those are now. Be a good thing.
Okay.
But I want to say that if you're not happy with that, what can I do to please the board so I can get the permit to build this building pretty quickly? I mean, I'll go to an engineer if you want again and do whatever I got to do, but this was done by...
If you own both parcels, you can boundary adjust, and then that would help you out with setback.
Yeah,
That's not the side he's requesting the waiver on.
Yeah. No.
That's why I wanted to understand Don's comment better. Did you mean he should just keep moving that building northward till the other side setback isn't a problem?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you do.
You know what I mean, Tony?
I think so.
Yeah, he's saying if you move that building further toward the entrance driveway, then the side setback to the south with Delineation Corporation becomes a non-issue.
But does he have
That's
enough
not an
room to
issue
do that?
anyway, with delineation.
It became an issue when we moved the building outside of the front setback.
It's an issue from the zoning standpoint.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. All right.
So what is, the side yard setback is what supposed to be in this zone?
Well, it's 25 feet.
25 feet.
25 feet?
Mhm.
And so you'd have to move it 15 feet to the north. Is that what you're suggesting, Donald?
Yes.
And if you move it 15 feet to the north, would you be infringing on the driveway?
On the entrance.
If you look at the first picture, it doesn't show it encroaching. Did you look at the first
Oh,
picture?
yeah, yep.
I have it on the computer if you want.
So,
In the first picture, it's pushed to the west, but
Yes.
if you look at where it's lining up on the north there,
it meets the...
if it was where it was originally in the front side, it wouldn't be in that, there would still be space there.
Yeah.
I would suggest to the applicant that we are now officially into the margin of error of a little photo like this.
Yes.
The survey is the place to figure this out, and you still have a big question, which is, do you or do you not have ownership or a way, where does the right-of-way begin there? And the surveyor who did that document should be able to tell you that.
This is what Phelps Engineering got for me, and I, years ago, I asked the question, we never even got into it, but
I see.
who owned that roundabout?
Right. I think that's a key question,
That's
because
a
that's
key
the approach.
question for you to find out.
Well, now I will. I mean, someone has a record somewhere in this building that, or the college records show that they sold them or gave them that land, and that roundabout was part of it.
So if I were, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
If I were doing this administratively, I would look at this neighborhood and I would say, who do I have for abutters? What are my potential impacts to abutters if I approve a
That's true.
setback waiver?
Sewage
You're in the
treatment plant.
industrial district,
Yeah.
constructing a warehouse right next to a swale that's going to handle all the stormwater runoff off the roof. You've got an email in your packet from Delineation Corporation that says they don't even care. It seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, you could go right down to 5-foot setback waivers on both sides, and you wouldn't be bothering anybody. Which is different than if you're doing it in a residential neighborhood where you've got potential impacts to abutters, then you have to be really careful and require a survey. That's my opinion, but I can't do it administratively because the regulations say I can't, so.
I
So
didn't
this
understand
is
when
where I
Mr.
get
Mary owned the other
confused, 'cause-
building, although I totally respect your point, Heather, that we need to respect some setback on an interior parcel line, because there are good reasons for doing that over long term. But I don't think you would need to adjust the boundary to, take it down to a small setback, the minimum setback that we can approve if the owner is the same owner on both sides. My concern was the utility of that semi-access, the truck access on that parcel to the north. I didn't understand until recently that was yours.
If I can get the police and firemen to take a walk with us on this backside here, maybe we can solve this problem pretty easily.
I can tell you, Tony, what's going to trigger this is going to be those propane tanks for the fire department.
Yeah,
They're going to want as much room as they can if they have to get to those.
they got it. There's no
Right.
question.
I'm just saying that, and I think you might want to make sure that the state doesn't let you build too big.
Oh,
Yeah,
If the entrance is so wide now, there
Right.
wouldn't be a problem, but for them to get back here, it's open, all of it is all open. And what we've done in the backside of the big Vermont Built building now is, they have 25,000 of the 30,000 square feet. We brought in, Paquette parked some of his trailers back here during the winter. In the summer, Vermont Gas uses that for an area where they they're going to facilitate the town with their gas lines. So the access in and out, there's plenty of room, and there's a lot of trucks every day there, in and out.
Well, on your proposed site, there are trailers there now.
Yeah, right around the site itself.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
There now, Roger comes and just fills
but
it
as
all.
long as those are registered, they don't fall under any restriction.
Right, they
Yeah,
are,
no,
You can-
that's my
you can
issue,
have-
was
you
just
can have
that.
them- You can have them full,
they're all registered.
as long as they're registered.
They store a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll come get a permit for
Well, I
me for the
think,
building.
I'd like to make a motion.
And I
that
can
said
put
that maybe-
any conditions in that permit you need.
Go ahead, Don.
maybe we could approve this with the idea that maybe administratively, once you move the building around and get it within the setback, I think it would be okay. I don't have an issue with it. I just think you need to clarify what you own and what the setback will be when you decide to locate it.
So your motion would be for him to position the building so that there are no setback waivers required?
Well, I think we're okay with the 5 foot.
Okay.
I think the issue up here for me is that turnaround. I think that clearly needs to be
Well, that's-
defined. Who,
Yeah, but,
But you've already got a 5-foot setback from that turnaround now, right?
yeah,
yeah, but you're okay, if the 5-foot is actually owned by the town, that issue is solved, when we find out. But
Yeah.
we would still allow for the building to be within 5 feet of that.
right,
Okay.
yeah. And getting back to what Heather says, if they decide to split the parcel, that parcel would be the only one it would be in non-conforming,
Okay,
right?
that's right.
Okay.
Okay.
So can I clarify that motion? Sorry. So the motion is to approve, conditionally approve this with a 5-foot front setback waiver, but not side setback waivers?
I didn't think it was an issue with the side yard.
It's- what- No, it may not
That was
be.
just the front and the rear.
So this is a
It's not
conditional
just the front,
approval
it's
with a
the
waiver
front
for the
on the-
front.
He's asking
It's the
for,
front on the circle only.
The front of the circle only is the
waiver.
issue.
But it shows on the drawing
no,
that,
there's a request for a 10-foot waiver on the side yard.
Right.
Okay, so your motion is,
I'm only talking about the 5-foot in the front.
okay, but there's a request for 2 waivers, a front and a side. Is your motion just for the front?
I'll include the side. It has to be 10 feet.
Okay.
This one's 10 feet.
I'm sorry.
He's modified his motion to include the side yard setback.
And I can figure out the details
front yard.
administratively.
Okay, so the motion is a conditional approval with a minimum 5-foot front setback and a minimum 10-foot side setback.
And to work it out administratively with,
Okay. I just want to be clear that I have,
You got it.
I'd like to clarify, I think we're only giving a 5-foot front setback in the area of the turn.
That's correct.
okay,
Okay.
that's all we're doing, yes.
okay.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Scott. Is there further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion is carried.
And did you catch that nuance, Heather, that it was a 5-foot setback in the front, 10-foot setback on the south side, but the 5-foot front setback is only on the curve in the road, not the entire frontage?
Yes.
Okay,
Got it.
yep.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Next item of business, okay, the
The
parcel is
longest DRB meeting I've ever had.
the parcel is located
I
at,
feel bad for you guys having to sit through this whole thing.
Well, hopefully we can.
Thank you for being so patient.
Quick.
okay, the parcel is located at 467 Airport Road in the Airport District.
Excuse
That's
me.
the survey on the backside of the site plan. I don't know which you guys prefer.
Okay.
I don't know what you prefer, the survey or the site plan?
We've got both.
Okay, I'll leave the survey up here.
I don't think there's actually,
Sorry about that, guys. There could have been 2 people who showed up for that first
wait a
hearing, we
minute, right
never
here.
know.
I can make this
That's the
bigger.
way it goes.
I've driven out there and looked at this.
Can't really read that very well still. This is the,
I don't know, I got that, I don't have their application.
No.
this is
Okay,
project.
We don't have an audience.
we can't do that.
And then there's this one.
Be a good thing.
Which one did you want to sign?
Okay, if you'd like to introduce yourself and then tell us briefly what the proposal is.
Sure. Jason Barnard.
Ron Fenn?
The proposal is for simple 2-lot subdivision and boundary line adjustment of an existing 67.5-acre parcel. There was a previous subdivision done on this parcel back 2005, 2006 timeframe. The state water and wastewater was obtained. Mr. Fenn actually ended up, he cut the existing house off, and you can see the boundary that was originally done with the house located at 3614 K Street. It's sort of shaded in a lighter gray. The proposal is to adjust.
Hang on one second, Jason.
Oops.
It's the next one, the next sheet.
Oh, no, I know what he's doing.
Oh, sorry.
I got a question.
I'm
That's
sorry.
going back to here.
Okay, shut up. Sorry.
I know the parcel well.
So, back to what we were doing. So anyways, the existing, it was 2.17 acres around the existing house. The proposal is to adjust that down to 2.07, create another lot 2.04 acres in size that would also be improved with a 4-bedroom, single-family home at some point in the future. The wastewater permit has been obtained for that, lot number 2. The remaining land, 67 and a half acres, I think was what we had
Yeah, something like that.
left over, would be undeveloped with deferral language in the deed. So it's a simple project, 2 lots. Access permit was obtained prior. We'd have to update that as part of the final application. Leaving a right-of-way on one end. There is still road frontage with lot 3 on either side of these parcels. So we do have adequate road frontage on each of the lots. For the project, the remaining land and also lot 1, 2, and 3. 3 has 2 points of road frontage on the parcel. On-site water, or on-site wastewater, municipal water. State issued a permit a few months ago for that.
Okay, any questions from the board?
So, there's something about access to lot 2 through lot 3.
Correct. Yes.
Can you explain that?
We're using an existing access that's already been approved by V-Trans. We'd have to update that. That was done, the access permit was actually looked at and reviewed as part of the former gravel pit project.
Application.
The application.
Project means it.
Yeah. So we decided, I mean, it's been reviewed by V-Trans. They've looked at it for site distance. And we would follow up and just get an updated application or an updated, condition to their permit to have it be residential. But you had a question on the access, Rick?
3. Yes, I did. So you'd be accessing lot 2
through
lot 3.
Yes.
And that's part of the 67.6 acres that would be left from
It
this.
is. So we'd have, as part of the final plat, we'd have to put a right-of-way on that. On really just up to a point where the driveway, where that lot 2 branches off.
Oh,
So similar to the access, and I did notice that we'd have to just have the surveyor put a small, it would only go in 100
okay,
feet.
all right.
Access right here.
No, actually, they'd access
Right here within the, right.
yeah. So it wouldn't be that, it'd be just a short stub of a right-of-way,
Okay.
60 foot wide.
Donald, you had a question?
No, Rick asked the question that I was going to ask.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I was unclear on the wastewater permit situation. So the wastewater permit in place is for lot 1 plus what's now 2 and 3.
No, the wastewater permit was amended.
Okay, it's been,
There was an original wastewater permit issued in 2005, 2006, and that was just for a replacement area for the existing house. So we amended that.
that's lot 1.
That's lot 1.
Okay.
Yep, and with the revision to the boundary line in the new lot, we obtained an amendment to the wastewater permit.
For 3.
Yes.
So there are
Yeah.
2 home sites and a...
So it actually addresses the
Okay,
revision to lot 1, and then it
Thank you.
addresses lot 2.
I misread it.
Okay, Jen, do you have any comments? Or-
Did you put any thought into that shared maintenance agreement for the driveway?
It can be easily done. It's something that Ron and I haven't had a chance to really talk about. We just-
I would definitely,
It's the paper on Friday.
I definitely recommend it. You've probably seen situations as well as I have where people often have disputes down the road about who takes care of that access.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a culvert at the end of that driveway?
There is not, and we'd have to, as part of the V-Trans, they'd be, putting it, they'd want it.
And then people fight over the culvert and who maintains it, and, yeah. Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Is this the same lot where I saw a solar application come in today?
Pardon?
Is it, I saw a solar application come across my desk today, and I was busy, I didn't look at.
That's in back, on the same.
So that'd be like back on lot 3, behind the tree line there? Mm-hmm. So those folks would use that driveway too, making a shared maintenance agreement an even better idea, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So, given the historical subdivisions, this is the last one, the paperwork said. Does that mean that at this time he could choose to divide that other lot more? And if he doesn't now, he won't ever be able to again? Or is it we only allowed to do one more and that's it?
Yeah, only this one, and then he's maxed out.
So even if he wanted to do that 67 into a larger, you don't have that opportunity?
Yeah,
How's that from a density
Yep.
base?
Yeah, the density calculation tells you how many new home sites can be created from a parent parcel as the parcel existed in 1987. So Ron and I went over all of that. So it can still be used for something that's not a new home site, like a solar site.
So lot 3, lot 3 could not be used for a home site?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
If lot 1 and 2 were made bigger from the original parent, could they then later be subdivided or not?
Nope.
Hold on, can I get something clarified? So lot 3 would not be considered a building lot, even if it was not further subdivided. So the 67, because essentially you'd be leaving a big parcel that would not have a home site. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
That wasn't my understanding from
Yeah, I thought it was, and that wasn't mine either. I thought it was no further subdivision
Do I have it wrong?
of the
'Cause
land,
we
but
talked through that.
I'm pretty sure that,
You showed me the paper.
yeah.
Refresh my memory.
It was like, the zoning law is 25 acre lots on that back, the way that back 50 acres is zoned. And you can petition to,
But there was only a certain number of new home sites you could get out of the parent parcel. And then there was that predicament with your sister and the deed getting in just after, right?
yeah, but that's not an issue. That was a
Yeah.
separate parcel.
That
That
was
was
separate.
misrepresented on the 87 map.
But it was important for us to resolve that, because
Yeah.
if it had come in before 1987, you wouldn't be able to create this
Well,
lot.
I have a copy of the deed.
Yeah. So I thought this lot maxed you out and you were done.
Max amount in terms of lots, but wouldn't that 67 acres still be able to have at least one home site on it?
Well, it was at least two, according to the way it was zoned. I mean, you showed me the paper.
My recollection is that 67.6 acres was part of the original parent parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this lot 2 is the last home site available from that original parent parcel.
Because you do a yield of 50 acres of 2 to 25.
No, because section,
It's 20, it was 25 acres.
Right.
it's this section 620 Schedule A. You find the parcel area of the original parent parcel, and then there's the maximum permitted number of home sites. And so, I don't recall what the parent parcel was, but I'm going to guess it was between 50 and 74.9 acres, the original parent parcel. I know we went through this whole calculation.
Well, the original, it was 72 acres, I think.
So that would give you 4. 4 is your maximum permitted number of home sites.
So on that would be, so there's 2
Right.
proposed, so that would leave,
Yeah, but there were more before this.
there was no.
More what?
More components of the 87 master parcel.
Right. Sorry, I didn't think we were going to have to go
Okay,
back through
yeah.
all this again.
Yeah, and I always thought it was relative to further subdivision. I didn't think it was the fact that that's.
No, it doesn't keep going forward and forward and forward and forward.
No, but I mean, just in terms of remaining land being left over, I thought at least you could do a home site on that remaining parcel.
Well, I guess I'm going to ask if this is relevant to the DRB being able to make their decision, or if this is something we can all figure out back in the office.
I think it's something we can.
What was the nature of that question?
It was Mike, I just wanted clarification for the applicant.
Well, the reason I was asking the original question was, I guess, if they were able to make further subdivisions on the property at this time, but once this subdivision is made, they can't make any more, did they want to consider the whole property and how it was all gonna be finally done before we made a decision on it, I guess is what I was thinking. So, I don't wanna make a decision that says, okay, this is it, you're done, and then he has this huge piece of property that he can't do anything with, because we made a decision tonight.
Well, how would your decision affect what the zoning laws are? I mean, the zoning laws are what they are.
I was just going by what was in the staff memo. Maybe I missed, the staff memo said that this was the final subdivision.
And
So-
that's the way I read it, as the final subdivision of this parcel.
Okay, I've got it.
Based on the 87.
Here's my notes. We can do this. So in 1987, the total amount of that parent parcel that was in the Ag District, and this Section 620 Schedule A refers to Ag District properties, was 17.25 acres. And when you go to this table, 17.25 acres falls within a bracket that says you have 2 maximum permitted home sites. That's what it was. So maximum permitted number of home sites counting existing and new is 2. And so Lot 1 was the first home site, and now Lot 2 is the second home site. So now,
But you just said that was on 17 acres? But there's
72
67 left?
yeah, but not all of
But it
it's
was
in the Ag District.
it was in the district.
Not all of it's in the Ag District.
Based on the district.
Okay.
So would that
I'm
first house site that's already there count, the existing house?
Mhm.
That would also,
Yep, because it was created after 1987. There's another one just north of there that was created after 1987,
Which one was that?
the one that you supplied me the deed for. I think your sister
That was
maybe.
created in 1980. That was the actual lot was from 1923. It was deeded to my sister in 1986.
Right, so,
I have the deed.
right, it's probably this one that you gave me. I mean,
Yeah.
We went through all this in my
Okay.
office like months ago. I don't know why this is all like,
Yeah, but in your office, you never, it was said that I could do 2 lots on the rest of the property, at least.
2 lots on the 17.25 acres that are in the Ag District.
and I follow that. I
Yeah, I
follow that.
agree
I
with
just
that.
was,
Okay.
I was curious about the remaining parcel, whether that had
Well,
to,
the remaining parcel, part of it,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm
like, what is he saying? Now I understand what you're saying.
the
It was like a
remaining
Don
land,
moment.
yeah, the
It was
remaining
a Don
land
moment. I have
can't
these all the
be
time.
left without a
Yeah,
home site.
so that's in the forestry district.
Correct.
Right, so the minimum lot size for the forestry district is 25 acres.
Right.
So you still have
Right.
2 acres left
Right.
there.
There we go.
But not in the Ag District.
But the thing says we can't subdivide anymore,
Well, I made a mistake.
right?
What's saying?
The staff memo says that the 67.5.
That was a mistake. I made a mistake in the staff
Oh,
memo. I
okay.
wasn't thinking
Okay.
about that
No, we
acreage that
were
was in
looking at the
forestry
district, and that was what, yeah, Jen and I did talk about this. We talked about the
Okay.
district,
Yeah.
and
Just in
that's
the-
where,
In the time that transpired between our initial
Okay.
conversation and now, I was
been
thinking
a
the
little
whole thing was in the Ag District, but it's
Okay.
not. It
I'm
bridges two
sorry.
districts.
I just wanted to make sure that if he was gonna be done subdividing, that he had a final plan for the whole
He'd get 2 more
property.
shots at
big-
it.
I can't
yeah.
even sign for a
Okay.
picture.
I agree with what you're saying, so now that I'm understanding that there are 2 districts that we're dealing with.
there
here.
are.
Yeah, and you can see it on
Fortunately, it
Jason's
doesn't
plat.
show up on the survey plat, but it does
Yes,
show up on
Oh,
the
here.
on this one here.
That's probably,
Yeah, and there's actually, so.
sorry, I
there's
created all this mess.
Your forest, and then there's
That's a
also
good
the
question to ask. So
wellhead
that's the
protection.
way the memos were, it looked like.
I
it
just
could-
didn't want
Okay, so,
Sorry, I forgot about that.
And I thought Jen, I thought I understood you right when we talked. That's why.
I make a motion that we accept the 2-lot subdivision of Mr. Fenn.
I'll second it.
there's been a motion and seconded. Is there further questions or?
I don't know, Jen, do I need to make any reference to the right-of-way from the state, or should we just let that done administratively, or how do we want to deal with it?
We'll have to we'll put it on the final plat.
Yeah, let's condition that for the final plat.
Okay.
Okay.
And also the road maintenance,
an agreement, yeah.
that's what you're looking for? Just some language.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I buy that front lot, I'm not gonna take care of the roads going all the way to the 67 acres and back,
Why not?
because I'm not.
And we're going to write that right into the deed.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Hopefully you guys aren't here much longer.
Just one more airport project.
We have to do it in order session tonight? When do we have to do
I don't
it?
know, but this is the warmest building I've been in today, I can
I didn't
tell you
know.
that.
These chairs are comfy.
It's not.
No, it isn't. No,
Yeah,
it's getting chilly.
good to see you, Jason.
Should we come back on February, is it February 8th? February 6th? Is it February 6th or February 8th is the next
8th is the
meeting?
Monday.
So should we come back on February 8th and have a little deliberative session and go through the airport decision? and-
Can everybody be here on the 8th?
I am out of town on the 8th, the evening. I don't get back until late.
You could send any comments to me and I could incorporate them.
I'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
Yep, I will give you my comments.
Donald, the 8th?
The 8th is our next regular scheduled time, right?
I don't anticipate
You
it.
can't? Would you be willing to submit any questions or comments to Jen, if you have any, before the 8th?
Is this the
I
only
don't
one?
have to be here, Kevin.
Yeah,
I
there's no
recuse
business
myself.
on the 8th.
Then can we pick a different day?
That might be a good idea if we can get it all done within 45 days total. Okay, so
I
February 22nd
have no
is
problem
the
meeting
next
a different day if you want to do a
And we do have
different day
business on the
before that.
22nd.
Do we have to do it on the Monday
We have
night?
45
It's a
days.
setback, it's a setback waiver for a guy building a garage in East Middlebury.
We can meet
And then it's
at any time.
a pediatric
It doesn't have
dental
to be
office.
that.
That's kind of a
That's
bigger
fine.
application. But Brad Loaf will be here to present it, so it should be a smooth presentation.
What about February 22nd?
What date is that?
February 22nd?
Okay, that would,
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
And we'll be within the,
We'll be well within
time.
the
the
45
45
days.
day.
45 days.
Okay.
February 22?
Yep, February
Are
22nd.
you here,
Don,
Dave?
can you be there?
David, are you here for that one?
Here.
Okay.
Don's not here, though?
The 22nd.
Oh, that's right.
No, but we do have a regular
Getting a
meeting
little
on the
punchy.
Oh, you do?
Yes, we do anyway.
the 22nd.
Yeah, it's scheduled meeting.
Okay.
If I was retired,
Other
we could
business?
turn it.
What's that? I know, right? It's these cold chairs, too.
Other business and other business.
I have one comment.
Okay. Are there people that, or are there persons on this board that are up for reappointment this year? And if so, when does that have to happen? Or, I think I am one of them.
You are one of them, and the other
You
one.
better
Three
get
of
your-
us were last year,
You better get your letter in then.
so
What?
Yeah, I think it
Kevin
is.
and I and David were appointed last year.
So it's you and Don this year.
And what's the timing on that?
Get your letter in.
I don't remember.
Catherine.
I'll check.
It doesn't
After town
happen
meeting.
Yeah, it's
until after
Second
town meeting.
Meeting, second meeting of the select board meeting, they will advertise the position. They will vote on it at their third meeting. Put your name in nomination, and they'll vote the following meeting.
Okay.
Just send an email to Beth and she'll relay it to Catherine.
Yeah, copy me, too.
Yes.
Can you send an email to me?
Whether I,
yourself?
yes or a no?
Yeah, about coming back, hopefully.
Yeah, and could you do the same for me?
Oh, we have to make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah. Kevin has some more.
I have,
you have more business?
yeah, I just have one thought on, and I don't know if we can do anything about it, but on proposals like the airport, when they send us things like the amount of paper that each of us got,
Yeah, that was nuts.
is there any way that we can eliminate that? I know the regulations say 20 copies to the town, but is there some way where we could, on instances like that, reduce that, so maybe one copy for the board? I mean, a lot of the information in there, other than Dave, some of us would be hard put to understand it.
It's just 20 pages of technical sections.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if that's possible. but if it is.
I thought about that, and then I was torn, because I was like, well, legally, since it's this on-the-record review thing, yeah, that's why they gave you so much, just in case they get appealed by one of these folks, they want everything there.
This will be appealed. This decision is going to be appealed.
Yeah.
Because I can,
You can feel it.
All right, that's the only, it's,
And so I feel like you guys were supposed to technically
I know.
have all those things to review. I don't know if legally I can give you a partial
okay, well, maybe,
package.
maybe not, but I'll just throw it
have
out.
your ducks in a row.
I'll ask
so
the
this
attorney.
will
You
be-
email it to us, Jen? Would that
Heather?
come to us?
I know everybody wants to go
Oh, that's a
home.
good idea.
I just wanted to say, I talked to Jennifer in her office a week or so ago, because I was concerned about Deniker Chevrolet's parking vehicles and their apparent new driveway to that back part of their property that I don't think we discussed and wasn't on the plans, and I just wanted to
Well,
express.
it was discussed. As Kevin and I talked about it before the meeting, I said, what about the partial land up on the hill?
Yeah, but they didn't mention anything in their.
No, they didn't.
They didn't
What
mention
hill you
anything in
talking
their
about?
proposal.
Behind Deniker's, up on the hill, that I said that nobody said they owned, where the old barn was for Sabrins.
Yeah?
The old barn is up by, what barn you talking about?
Behind Deniker's.
Behind Deniker's is up on the hill,
Yeah.
is where Mrs. Sabrin lives.
Yes, and that's where they're parking their vehicles now.
I thought the parking was across the road.
It is, and it also
Well,
So
Well, I
my
didn't-
concern was that we didn't discuss improving a driveway to access that property as part of the project.
right was already in.
Not to the degree it is in now.
Oh.
They made some pretty significant improvements there.
I can go back and show you pictures years ago, that used to be Beckwith's junkyard up there.
Okay, well.
Really?
Kevin,
Anyway,
did I not
I
tell
don't-
you this?
I don't
Well,
want to delay
I
anybody
was-
anymore.
I'm
I just am
confused about where
concerned
you're
that
talking
we didn't
about.
discuss that and they
Behind
went ahead
Beckwith.
with that.
So I called the
Behind Deniker.
stormwater people.
Okay,
On the
anyway,
hill.
all right. Well,
Used to be the junkyard for Beckwith.
okay,
That's
Okay,
been there since Beckwith built there.
okay. And how does that fit into this discussion?
I don't think it does.
Okay.
What she's saying is, it's been an improvement to their lot, and it was never in the plan.
Yes.
okay.
The
I
the
would
driveway,
agree.
the driveway that they have put in
Right.
to access
Is
the
the
back
meeting
of that lot is in a
Do
significant.
you want to adjourn the meeting before, or is this still part of the open meeting?
I don't know, that's whatever is acceptable.
I think you
I
should
just wanted
make a
to
motion to
express to the
adjourn.
rest of the
Okay,
board my
yeah.
concerns about
You make a
that.
motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Okay,
Okay,
so
Kathy, we're
is it,
done.
is it something, I haven't